In this session, we will discuss sampling technique. We have discussed already that the sample size has to be calculated so that it is large enough for achieving a certain level of quality in study. The second thing that we will discuss now is that the sample should be representative of the population. And how it can be representative? It requires a good sampling methodology. Let's discuss now the different sampling methodologies. There are two main types of sampling techniques, non-probability and probability. Non-probability sampling is a kind of sampling where the probability of an individual in a population to be included in your sample is not possible to be determined and is not the same as the probability of another person in the population to be included in your sample. On the opposite, probability sampling is one where you can ascertain the probability of an individual in your population to be included in your sample. And there is equal probability of every individual in your population to be included in your sample. There are further different types of each of these two main types. Non-probability can be convenience, judgmental, quota, and slower sampling. Probability sampling can be simple random, systematic, stratified, or clustered. Next, we will discuss the detail of each one. So first, we will discuss the detail of probability sampling techniques. Okay, these are the probability sampling techniques. In simple random sampling, what you do is that you first of all list your population, give number to every individual in your population, and then by lottery method or balloting or computer generated random numbers, take out random numbers and those numbers should be included in your sample. In systematic random sampling, you calculate a sampling ratio. For example, every second person or every third person in your population has to be included in your sample. In stratified random sampling, you divide your population into groups or stratas. For example, we have these males and females in our population. We sort them into two groups. Then we take equal number of individuals from each group, or we may choose individuals from each group by simple random sampling method or by systematic random sampling method. Cluster sample is a technique where we sort our population into natural clusters that have been already made, such as people living in different towns. This is one town, this is another town, this is another one. We select one or two or three of these towns depending on our sample size required. We may include all individuals in each town, or if they are highly populated towns, we may select from each town individuals using these methods of simple random and systematic random methods. Our choice of these methods depend on whether our population is homogeneous or heterogeneous. Homogeneous means our population seems to be having same characteristics in all the individuals that we are interested in uh, assessment in our study. And for homogeneous population, we use either simple random sampling method or systematic sampling. In case of heterogeneous population, we feel that some of the variables in individuals may have an influence over the study results, and we want to keep equal number of different individuals in our study. For we are studying the effect of an intervention on people, and we feel that gender influences this effect. We feel that males have a more profound effect of this intervention, whereas in females its effect is less prominent. And if we keep a higher number of males in our study, the intervention will seem to be highly successful, whereas in real life communities have equal number of males and females usually. So the sample with higher proportion of males will not be the representative one for the population. So in this case, we will choose the right sampling strategy, not the simple random or the systematic random sampling, but we will use the stratified sampling, where we will first sort out population into two groups, males and females, and then take equal number of males and females. Okay, the second method is cluster sampling. If we do not need to sort our population into stratas, rather, it has already been divided into clusters, such as towns. For example, we have to study the impact of a new policy, and we want to get data from people of all religions in our population, and we know that our population has been already divided into clusters such as towns, and in each town people of all religions live together. So we can select any one or two clusters, and we will get data of all religion people. Illustration describes it better. In case of stratified sampling, we divided our population into groups. Here we can see there are 12 groups. So maybe we have 12 categories, and we are including individuals from all these groups in our sample. This may be equal number of individuals from each group, or it may be according to the size of group, or it may be by simple random method or systematic random method. The other method of probability sampling for heterogeneous population is cluster. Here our population is naturally divided into clusters, and we include some of them. We have selected these three in our sample, and we have included all individuals in each cluster in our sample. In case the population of each cluster is very large, we can use simple random or systematic random method for selecting individuals from each cluster. We use stratified sampling when our population is heterogeneous and each strata has one kind of category. For example, this is one religion, this is another religion, this is another one. That is, each group is homogeneous inside and heterogeneous outside. And in case of cluster sampling, our naturally made clusters had a variety of individuals. For example, this cluster has religion 1, religion 2, religion 3, all religion people living in each cluster. So we could select any of these clusters to include people of all religion in our study. So there's inside group heterogeneity and between groups homogeneity. That is, each cluster is like another cluster having a great variety, and the sample collected this way is representing the true population, having all the varieties. Purpose behind probability sampling is that our sample is representative of the population. Second category of sampling technique is non-probability sampling. This sampling technique does not ensure the true representative sample, and there are different methods under it. Convenience sampling, also called consecutive sampling, purposive sampling, quota, and snowball. Convenience sampling means that you select every second person that you come across while collecting data. And this is very convenient. Mostly beginners use this sampling technique. For example, we take data from first 100 patients in OPD, but the problem is that it is not a representative sample of this population. Second type is purposive sampling. Here we select all the patients that are fulfilling some criteria. That is, individuals are selected based on some purpose or judgment. For example, in my ward, I select all patients who are hypertensive of certain age. In quota sampling, the researcher makes strata first. For example, the researcher needs equal data from males or females, or maybe 30% from males and 70% from females. The researcher has already decided the quota that he needs for his research, and then the researcher divides the population into these two groups and takes people from both groups according to the quota required. Now, snowball sampling is a special kind of sampling which is used for accessing individuals who are isolated in a community, hidden or not accessible, maybe due to some stigma or embarrassment or rejection by community. For example, prostitutes, alcoholics, drug abusers, HIV patients, and one person having this characteristic, their scene is approached, and then that person is asked to give contact of other persons who he knows having the same characteristics, and then those people are approached, they are then asked to give contacts of other persons having same characteristics. So as we go on contacting people, our sample size becomes larger and larger, just like the snowball rolling and gathering more and more snow and becoming bigger and bigger. This was a brief discussion of sampling techniques. The main issue lying with non-probability sampling is the lack of representativeness of the sample. That's why we prefer using probability sampling, which is a robust method of sampling and is a must in case you are doing analytical studies and doing some inferences about hypothesis testing and estimation of population parameters, but it requires first making a list of the whole population. That is the sampling frame. Lastly is your inclusion exclusion criteria. These are the criteria of including people based on presence or absence of some variables to make the sample uniform. An exclusion criteria is used to exclude people from your study sample uh, based on some factors that make them ineligible for your study, and these should not be the mirror image of each other. For example, you want to include people 30 plus years of age, you will not write here exclude people less than 30 years.